While at Eastern Market, Beth and I found this chair. It's a salon chair or a barber's chair, and she thought it would look good in our family room. We could use another chair in there, so we found this one, and everything was in pretty good shape except for the base, and the hydraulics didn't work, which would raise the chair up and down. And I could see from on the bottom here that what it was operated by was just a simple, like a car jack. It's called a bottle jack, and it would pump the chair up and down. And I was very unfamiliar with this mechanism until I finally removed it from the bottom. So I put things in fast motion so it wouldn't bore you with all the minute details. There was a lot more going on here than just this, but this gives you an idea of what holds this thing in. There's a small spring that operates the pedal, and then there's this larger spring which will allow the pedal to bounce up and down as well. You could tell the spring was not in the right place. It was just kind of resting there on the outside of the jack. So I took the jack and set it aside, and this is the pin that controls the pressure in the jack, would raise it up and down. And there was a small collar that kept the seat from coming all the way back down and pushing the jack inside of the bottle. And I could tell from the bounce when I was pressing on it that there was some air inside of there, so the air had to be burped out of it as well. And just one bolt holds the pedal on, and it gave me a little bit of trouble trying to get it off, but once I figured out that I'd have to move the pedal a little bit higher up in position, then it allowed me to take the thing right off. Now I thought before I use any stripper on this, that it'd be a good idea to sand it down a bit to try and remove some of the paint and give the paint stripper a surface to kind of bind to. So I took off what paint I could with some 80 grit sandpaper, and I used citrus strip, which just smells better than other ones, so I thought I'd give that a try. So I put citrus strip on there, and I let it sit on the surface for about 30 minutes before trying to remove it. So after scraping it, I realized there was another ugly coat of paint underneath it, which was kind of a creamy white color, which was probably the original one that was painted on at the factory. And so the ugly silver came off, leaving me with ugly creamy white underneath. To deactivate the stripper, you just simply rinse it off with water, and so I put another coat of stripper on it. Let that set for another half an hour. That is what it looked like, and then I said, well, okay, it's time to be a little more aggressive. We'll do some more sanding on it. And this is kind of what I was left with after all that. And I tried this tool with my drill. It's kind of useless. It's supposed to be removing paint, but it's just ineffective. Maybe if I had a better drill or a more powerful drill, maybe I'd get a little bit further with it, but it was kind of useless. So I gave up on that. I said, well, I'm going to need more stripper then. So I sanded it down as best I could, get ready for another coat of stripper. And this time I tried reading the bottle, and the bottle told me that it would be a good idea to cover it, the entire surface, with plastic and let it sit overnight, which I did. And you see I had a lot better results with it sitting overnight under plastic, and the stripper was still wet, which is really important for it to work. So when you scrape it off, you'll have a lot more paint coming off. So even with it sitting overnight, I still had quite a bit of paint left on there. So what should you do? Use more stripper. So I did another coat, and I covered this one up with plastic wrap as well and let it set all day. And then as I was thinking about it, I said, I really need a tool that's a little more powerful than this. So I got on Facebook Marketplace, and I found a guy who had an angle grinder. And luckily the angle grinder had a paint removing attachment already on there. So after scraping this off, I decided to get the angle grinder out, and I would get off any removing stubborn paint that wouldn't come off at all. And this thing was just getting it down to bare metal there. So it was pretty awesome. I never used one of these things before, but Yeah, this was definitely the way to go. I taped off the parts I didn't want to get painted because I was be spraying paint all over the place. Some of the mechanisms probably get gummed up if you got paint inside there. And this paint is Rust-Oleum black matte finish. It's called hammer coat, which kind of gives it a almost like if you were to pound it with a hammer look, with like little dents in it, and that's supposed to help cover some of the imperfections in the metal. And does a pretty good job. I like the finish. I was very satisfied with the results of the finish on that. Back to this stupid thing. Now, in order to burp the air out of it, you release the, this is the spot where the oil was injected into it. It runs on hydraulic oil. And I had a small bottle of hydraulic oil I picked up at the store. So you open this up and basically just have to push down on the plunger and then operate the mechanism that raises it a few times. And that should burp all the air out of there so that you have a solid, just the plunger inside is contacting the fluid. And of course it wouldn't go up and down, so I had to loosen it up a bit. And that allowed it to be pumped up and down a few times, and that got all the air out of there too. And this is the hydraulic fluid, and I just put it in there until it was pretty much coming out the top there. It came out of the hole a little bit, and so it cleaned it up a little bit, and looks like this. So now we had to put the spring back where it belonged. The spring actually goes there, not on top of it, just kind of sitting there loosely. So that I put that was a lot of cussing, putting that in there. So I managed to get the spring in the right place and tested out the jack, and indeed it would pump up and come back down nice and slow, just as it's supposed to. So I married the two back together, and I had to give it a little test run right there, just to make sure that everything was working, the mechanism. I guess I won't show you the part where I put the mechanism back in there. That was really long and boring, but I finally figured it out. There's no directions for any of this stuff. And you see the chair does pump up and down, and you just press down a little bit further on the pedal and it goes down. And now we're going to find a nice spot in our house for this as a hopefully a relaxing TV watching chair or something like that. And thanks for watching, everybody.